Om Shanti. Hello to everyone. And I'm very pleased to again be with you all on this theme of 100% security. And especially to be with you on what is for the Brahma Kumaris a special day. Because the 18th of January is the day when we remember the founder of the Brahma Kumaris, Brahma Baba, because that is the day that we say he attained his angelic form or his stage of perfection, and he left us. He left this corporeal plane. And of course, you don't want someone to leave, but at the same time, his presence has become more unlimited. I do believe he was a very special person, and although I didn't meet him myself, I have heard so many stories about him through those who lived with him and knew him well. And through that, I feel as if I know him. But he really has been a very great figure of inspiration in my life. Why? Because he started something that really has become a spiritual revolution. Just to set the scene, in the 1930s in India, in Sindh, now it's part of Pakistan, and that time it was part of India. It was a community where women weren't really educated, women didn't really have much life or standing of their own. And yet he showed tremendous courage. He felt that it was God's inspiration that he should empower women to become spiritual leaders and teachers. And so first it was a revolution in the society that he lived in. They really thought he'd gone crazy. But he felt he was working on divine inspiration. He felt that this was really what God wanted him to do. And so his 100% security came through 100% faith. And that meant that he could pass through so many challenges, call them obstacles, so many people of the community against him, but somehow he knew inside, he had the faith that he had to carry on with this work. And of course, I'm very grateful to Brahma Baba that he didn't give up and he carried on, because that's why I can be here speaking to you today and you can all be here listening to me. Because this whole worldwide movement then came from that time, came from those original beginnings. And so he knew, he had that vision that what was happening for him, the transformation he found happening in himself on a spiritual level, was something that could really benefit the whole world. And so I'm so inspired by his total faith. And when there's faith, real faith, one can be carefree. And we look at our world today and we say, oh my goodness, there are so many things to be worried about. So many things that we may feel we can't cope with or that are hopeless. But yet, when there really is faith, you know that you will do your very best. You will be so accurate in everything that you do. You won't take shortcuts. You'll be honest in your work. And because you do everything to the best of your understanding and ability, you can then be carefree to know that the divine, that God, will take care of the outcome. And this is a principle that Brahma Baba worked with, that he would be his best in everything, knowing that then God would take care from then on. Because who ultimately is responsible for what's happening in this world? There are two levels. One is we see what human beings have done and the result that that has created and the suffering that has been created. And then on another level, we see that those who are following God's directions, living with those divine virtues and principles, are able to create so much goodness in the world. And that level of goodness is a goodness that cannot be challenged. It's a goodness that everybody recognizes. So I do feel that Brahma Baba lived in this way. And when you live in this way, there are certain qualities that you have inside. And actually, when Brahma Baba left, when he passed on, he left us with 3 words or 3 phrases. And these were: be incorporeal, be egoless, be viceless. Now, these are not usual terms, are they? So let me explain them a little. Be incorporeal. Have that deep awareness that I am a soul, a being of light. And the body is the costume that I use, but it's not me. And I know for myself, when I practice that, I feel very free and I feel very secure, because I'm gaining what I need from God. When we gain what we need from our identity in the world, whether it's our gender, our profession, our culture, our background, all those identities, all those labels, sometimes we know they serve us well. Sometimes they really let us down when others then don't accept who we are. And we can't prove who we are in that way. But yet, when I'm aware that I'm a soul, a being of light, I'm aware of my original qualities, of purity, of truth, of peace, of love, of joy. And I know that these are enriched by my connection with the divine, with God. And I feel that connection. Then there is security in that. So the more I can practice being who I truly am and bring that into life, the more I will be secure and the more I'll be able to inspire others and serve others. What is needed in the world today? I think more than anything, compassion and kindness. But that can only come to this world if I have it inside of me. So that first thing he said, be incorporeal, is very, very meaningful. And then the second thing, be egoless. Gosh, we all feel we need our egos, right? I need my ego to defend myself. I need my ego to prove who I am. But don't you sometimes feel that that's a burden? And if we become free from ego, there's a beautiful quality that comes to us, 2 qualities actually. The first is humility. Humility is very misunderstood in this world. It's not a weakness, it's a huge strength. Humility means I don't have to prove myself, but I have to be who I truly am. And that shines a light to others automatically. And if there's true humility, then along with that is self-respect and dignity. I become a dignified human being. I know what is true. I listen to my inner conscience and I follow that. And so my mind is then calm. My mind is at peace. My emotions are more under my own mastery. So this quality of being egoless is very important, and it took me a little time to understand that actually I don't really need my ego, even though it keeps popping up all the time. But when I'm in this more elevated level of awareness, of consciousness, of humility and self-respect, then I really can begin to live a life of dignity. And then the third thing he mentioned, be viceless. Okay, what are the vices? You know, all those negative traits that we see are not just in the world, but governing the world at the moment. Greed, anger, ego, possessiveness, control. Think about what's happening in all the different countries. Think about what's happening in terms of the environmental crisis. Why are we not moving forward? It's because of these vices, if you like. And I was reading a newspaper article by somebody who's an eminent journalist, and he can really see that the environmental crisis is just so huge and is really leading us to self-destruction if we don't do anything about it in time. And he said, I'm so frustrated, I cry every day. And that really touched me. And this is the result of the greed and the ego in this world. Greed for wealth. And I often wonder, when people have billions, well, what can they do with it all? But yet it's like it becomes a habit. I earn and I have to earn more and I have to earn more. Yes, I need to earn enough to live well, to look after my family, to have a good life. That's absolutely fine. But more and more, is it really necessary? And then greed for power, greed for position. I want to show that I'm somebody. And something that I understood quite early on from our teachings is that the root is about the root of violence. And when there's a lot of ego, anger follows it. Anger comes into violence. And you know what the root of violence is? It's the first violence that we do to ourselves. And that first violence is to suppress our own inner goodness, to not allow the qualities of peace, of love, of truth, of purity to actually be released and to live that in my life. When I don't allow that, I'm suppressing it in favor of something very limited. So rather than, if you oppose me, there are two paths I could take. I could be compassionate and loving, and with love we can work it out. And so then I stay in a good place of happiness, I stay uplifted, and then I uplift you as well. Or there's another path we can take. somebody insults me, opposes me, and my ego comes up, and I get angry, I get upset. So now you've got two upset people. What's the point? We often have a saying that it takes two hands to clap, but if only one hand claps and the other doesn't, then there's no noise. So when I suppress those inequalities, that violence then creates a gap, an emptiness inside, and I have to fill it with all these limited things, and very often it's filled with addictions, and that really, really brings the person down. It's a very, very sad situation. And so you can see then that if I have this kind of crisis going on inside of me, it's not just going to remain with me, but it actually spills over into my whole community, into nations. Think about what war is about. It's usually about my identity, my land, your land. Well, do we really own anything of this earth? The earth belongs to everyone. And so you can see that when there's that emptiness, there's the anger, and it spills over into violence. And so what do I learn from that inspirational character of Brahma Baba? He never suppressed his own inner goodness. He always followed his conscience. He always kept his connection with God, with the divine, very, very strong. So that not only did he have the faith to remain carefree, but he also received the power to continue to walk on that path and to inspire many others. And so let us just consider at each moment the choices that we have and what is possible in human life. Am I going to keep my life a life of suffering, or am I going to have a life of happiness, of dignity? It really is my choice. Thank you, and Om Shanti.